Welcome back to the weekly news roundup and the Linux edition. So over here, we're going to have a look at some basic Linux news. I pared it down to the three articles that I thought was the best for this week, just to see some of the neater or interesting things going on in the Linux world. Of course, you can catch the show live Fridays, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time if you want to catch that. But let's go ahead and dive right on in to the Linux news. First up, Arch Linux is going to officially start supporting ARM and RISC-V architectures, which I think they're really late to this field. In fact, the only place you've seen ARM in Arch is Manjaro and Endeavor, and as we covered on the news a few weeks ago, Endeavor is closing it down because they just didn't have anybody to maintain it, and there was no ARM inside of Debian. This might change that. This might cause Endeavor to go back and re-examine that ARM-based. Now, I say it's a little late because ARM-based processors have been huge for a few years now. There's been a lot of buzz, and what we're seeing with the proliferation of Raspberry Pis and other ARM computing devices is that we're seeing a ton of development in the Debian world and even some in the Fedora world, but we're not seeing a lot in the Arch world. Even playing around with the Raspberry Pi, I have Manjaro and I don't have a ton of other distros that I have to choose from that are not somewhere in the Debian family. And so looking at that, this is a really good idea. I think they're a little late, but hey, better late than never, especially the way they are implementing it. What they're doing is they're setting up a port, which is going to allow anybody who's been working on it independently to port back up to the Arch project. And eventually they're going to merge all that back in to have a unified place with the ARM repos and the x86 as well. And so there we have the ability to run a lot of different types of systems on Arch that have not previously been available. So this really is big news in the Linux world because the ARM world has been taking over and Arch has been way behind everybody. Now, the way Arch moves pretty quick, that's very possible they're going to get caught back up to speed pretty quickly. So we'll see what's up for that, but stay tuned for that. If you're looking for any type of Arch ports to ARM processors, you might see some more work coming into that now that they're doing this. Now, they did say that they have taken inspiration from Debian ports, which is trying to do something similar. Of course, Debian supports like everything under the sun. If like some dude comes up with some weird new architecture, Debian will support it with like 3 weeks or something. I don't know. Well, maybe 3 years because they move so slow, but nevertheless, it will work pretty well. So that is really good news in the Arch world as we start moving into ARM, because like, I'm just looking at the power of the ARM processors. They get our computing power up, dropping our power down. Well, if we're really serious about saving the planet, we have to reduce our power consumption when we can. I mean, I'm doing this whole show completely off grid. I have to watch my battery levels a little bit because we're a little lower than I'd like to be. But as I look at my regular daily workflow, what I did to cut power back is my daily workflow is done on a Raspberry Pi 4, which can be laggy at times. The Pi 5 does not consume a ton more electricity. We're talking maybe 10% more, and it's infinitely more powerful. I was doing some projects on the Pi 5 the other day. I halfway through, you forget you're even on a Raspberry Pi. That's how good it is. But the power is a fraction of what we're doing. Obviously, we couldn't do something like stream a show to it or heavy graphics intensive things. But ARM is really the way to go. And so that is definitely a direction that we want to look at. Second up is we have, of course, another ARM. This deals with Apple Silicon. Fedora, we were trying to figure out exactly how to pronounce this. Is it Asahi or Asahi? Fedora Asahi, I'll call it that, Remix 40 is now available for Apple Silicon Macs with KDE Plasma 6. They also have a GNOME 46 variant, so the two big, faster growing, more recent versions of desktops, GNOME and Plasma. These all have support inside of Apple Silicon. Now, I've heard of an Ubuntu that supports the Apple M1. This actually supports the Apple M2. So they actually have a whole list down here. They actually, I think their official page was a little bit nicer. So let's go ahead and do that. And then you can see their chips, M1 and M2 chips. They have features, displays, keyboards, trackpad, cameras. The things that they're not working as well, USB-C displays, Thunderbolt, microphone, and Touch ID. So we do have some of those. Actually, it looks like it's going to be different for each computer. So that's the MacBook Air. Here's the Pro. Here's the Mac Mini. So we have the Mac Mini M1, M2, and M2 Pro is supported. Mac Studio, we have M1 Max, M1 Ultra, M2 Max, M2 Ultra. So this is absolutely the most support that I have seen on the M chips from Apple. So that's actually pretty good. Mac Pro is coming soon. But that is what their port is doing. So this is, of course, if you're in the Fedora family or are interested in running and getting a better experience on the M1, M2 series chips from Apple Silicon, you might have to jump into Fedora, because I think that they're making the absolute best forays into this world so far. So have a look at that if that applies to you. And don't forget that there are a couple of extra steps I think you need to do to unlock the ability to run Linux on it. Basically, you need to do something to enable you to be able to boot off an external drive in the M1 and M2 chips. So make sure you do that. But there are certainly some options. And now for the biggest news this week. This went all the way around the world pretty quick. Debian switches to a stripped-down KeePassXC. Now, there's been a lot of discussion and debate. According to the Debian guys, they're stripping out a lot of the extra, what they use the word plugins, to have just a core function which had no network capabilities. It had only the principles you needed to store passwords. It had no browser integration. I didn't see exactly, but I don't think they had their KeePass support in there. Local system support and basic storage only, no other features. Now, KeePassXC came back and said it's not. These aren't plugins they stripped out. What they did is they modified the source code, which they're free to do. They modified the source code to strip out everything involved in any of the advanced features. So I use KeePassXC for a lot more than just passwords. I will use it for passkeys. I will use it to store other client data. I have not actually switched to using it for browser integration, but I probably should, in all honesty. I'm a little lazy in one of the browsers. I use the browser system, which I shouldn't be doing. So yeah, maybe that's what we need to do in the near future, start using the browser integration with KeePassXC. So that is certainly what they're doing. So of course, KeePassXC says, no, this is not removing plugins. They're removing core functionality that is actually built in. And the one thing that they did say is going to be seriously impacted is YubiKey support, which means you can unlock your KeePassXC database with a YubiKey instead of a passkey. The function that they requires them to do that is stripped out. So you can no longer unlock your KeePass files with a YubiKey if you're using that, because it's not using the YubiKey code from Debian. It's using the YubiKey code internally to avoid things like the XZ bug, stuff like that. So KeePass has done a really good job on security, just to make sure that everything that it uses is internal to itself rather than relying on a lot of external things. Now, all that being said, this is not the end of the world, because now there are effectively 2 KeePass packages inside of here. So if you just install the regular KeePassXC, now this is not in the current Debian bookworm. This right now is in SID. And unless they get a ton of pushback, it's probably going to be rolled out in the next version of Debian. So what's happening here is if you go into Debian, if you're on SID, and presumably future versions of Debian, you type in sudo apt install KeePassXC, you're getting the stripped down version that only has offline support and basic password management. If you do need the extra features, there is a full package for that. They have the KeePassXC-full, and that's going to give you everything. Both of them are included in Debian. I think they did that just to minimize things. Maybe, in my opinion, I don't have a huge problem with it because it's all still both available. But I'm wondering if they might make the KeePassXC the full one and do maybe a KeePassXC-Lite for people who want just that basic local stuff. So the things that are stripped out: networking capabilities, IPC management code, web browser integration components. So if you want to use your KeePass in your web browser, auto password functionality, and YubiKey support. So you can, of course, do KeePassXC-full and get the full regular package if you want. Just be aware of that change. If you're using this and you're used to, or you have an install script for installing all the software, you do need to make that change possibly going forward, but we'll see what happens with the debate as things move on down the pipeline. So there is what is up with Debian and KeePassXC. In my opinion, not the end of the world, but it's just something that's good to know, filed as a way. And if you're using Debian or even something derived on Debian, make sure you know which KeePass version you're using so you don't have any surprises or missing features that you might even need. So particularly of use if you're trying to use a YubiKey to get into your file. Well, if you want to help support the channel, we do have a Patreon page, so you can jump on over there, patreon.com/TOMM. And for any current supporters, we did have a little bit of writer's block. I had actually written about 2/3 of the short story for this month, and I completely hated it. I hated the direction it was going. I thought it was pushing in directions that didn't make sense, and so I was going to scrap the whole thing, but then I started staring at it, and I reread what I had, and I decided with a few tweaks I can move it back into a really neat direction, and I like the direction it's going now. So it is still a work in progress. Hopefully we'll get it out by the end of the month. I'm not making any promises to do it any time before. Of course, if you don't know what we're talking about, if you join Patreon or any of other supporter networks, we are doing a monthly short story where related to modern trends in either just trends in technology, new emerging technologies, policy regarding technologies. We're doing short stories about those and questioning, did people really think about some of the potential side effects of some of these technologies? And so we're really looking at these. Now, this story here is going to be the last one for the summer. We'll resume them probably September, but in the in between months, I'm going to be compiling the stories we have. We have 10 of them right now. I'm going to be compiling the stories that we have, putting those into a book. Our Patreon supporters, I haven't figured out everybody exactly. Is it everybody or is it like 5 and up? Some people are going to be able to get a free copy of that paperback book when it's out. And I will make the digital files available to everybody on $1 and up on those networks. So that is what is coming on down the pipeline, and one of our big benefits of that. The other one, of course, you can join in on our Thursday, either live shows or after live show. You can jump in those as well. With that, patreon.com/TOMM. Thanks for watching, and hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.